All right, we want to talk about how to read a scholarly research article. When reading an article, you want to start with the abstract. The abstract is kind of like a uh, summary or a conclusion all rolled into one before you actually break down and read the whole article. So when you're scoping out or researching, you're investigating for your topic, all you got to do is once you put in, like, say, like Google Scholar or whatever um, library source you're going to use to research your articles, you put your keywords in, and when the list pulls up, you'll want to get articles that you can access, the full PDF version of it, and you just want to go right to the abstract. Okay? So when you go to the abstract, that's going to tell you whether it's relevant to what you're doing or not. Next, you want to read the summary and conclusion after the abstract. Okay? You want to make this kind of like the KISS theory, where they say, keep it simple, stupid. Because you want to be able to go to the abstract and say, is this article relevant to what I'm researching? Then you're going to go to the summary and conclusion and say, let's dig deeper. Let's see what the outcome was. What was the article mainly about? And does this still fit what I'm looking for? Then you're going to skim the article looking at the headings and look at the tables and graphs to see if it can help you with the factual data and or information that you need. One of the things that I was taught with my PhD program is to do the abstract, do the summary, but also do the introduction section or introduction paragraph. And that should give you the large part of what the research article is all about. From there, I'm probably going to get ahead of myself a little bit. We might see a little bit of replay on this, but the next, after you do those things, depending on, you might want to look at the methodology section. What type of method did they use to get the data for their article? Because that'll tell you whether it's lining up to your information, or you could use, if I'm sitting there looking at voting patterns, and I find a article that talks about voting patterns, and they used a qualitative research, well, I can look at which one they used, how they implemented it, and how they used that method to do their study. So you don't want to plagiarize. You do not want to plagiarize, but you can use the structure of another paper. In other words, it was 15 pages. The references, you could, use that, but when you synthesize the information, it needs to be your information. But you could use the structure and the layout like other people. That way you're not reinventing the wheel. I particularly, unless it's just a really interesting article, I don't read the entire article. This right here says carefully read the entire article. I don't, because I don't want to waste time honing in what I need. Because by the time you read the abstract, the conclusion, the introduction, you pretty much know what the article's about. Now, if it's a 110% article matching what you're doing, then you might dig deeper into it and read more of it. But I wouldn't waste time reading every article in its entire form. If you don't understand something, you've got to ask for help. Communicate. This says how to read a scholarly research continuum. It says reading a book-length report. Start with the preface, and it will tell you if the article is relevant to your study. Then you're going to skim, and you're going to the book, paying attention to organization, headings, tables, graphs, and major findings. Same thing for the regular article. Read it closely while taking notes. You definitely want to take notes when you're doing the articles and or books, because that way it'll save yourself some time when you go back. So if you make your first pass and you're making notes, then when you go back in the future, you could take those articles or that book and even go deeper and help yourself hone in on your notes. If you decide to read the book, repeat the process with each chapter. Research proposals describe the activities planned and include a budget and timeline. When you propose a research, they're going to ask you, what is your timeline here? What is the planned budget for this research? So depending on what you're doing, it might not cost a lot, but it might be time consuming or something like that. So that's tricky, but that's not bad. It usually doesn't take much. Certain agencies might have specific requirements for a proposal. Anytime that you're trying to write an article for a certain organization, they're going to have requirements for you to turn in. Just like I will tell you what I want for your paper. I'll say, 7 pages, 6 pages, 10 pages, whatever it is, and I'll tell you exactly what I want. Always follow those guidelines. If you're sitting there wanting to get published or you want people to take you serious, be respectful, follow the guidelines and the rules. Almost every proposal includes some basic elements. They want you to connect the dots. They want you to, to connect the dots just like an average person is reading your paper. Inside the research proposal, these are some of the things you're going to have in it, sections. Problem or objective. You're going to describe what will be studied. So you're going to have your problem statement, okay? Literature review summarizes the prior research on the topic. So, in other words, your topic, say like it's the history of terrorism, you'll use the leading researchers and others to describe what you're looking at and what they did and how yours is going to be different. Research questions specifies what the research will answer. This is tough because again, just like what the actual problem is, you're going to have to take time to hone that sucker in. A lot of times we get topics that are very, very vague, and we need to narrow it down as much as possible to make it easier for you to answer those questions. Subjects for the study: whom or what will be studied. You're going to have to give us who's the population or the demographics that you're looking at. Is it high school kids because you're talking about social media and the effects of society or something like that? So you need to know who you're going to study. Measurement. This is where the methodology comes in. Identifies the key variables of the study. This is important, especially when you're worried about biases and you're worried about other things. You need to make sure that you take that in consideration and rock it out in that fashion as well. Last but not least on the slides, it says data collection methods. Methodology. Explain how observation will be collected. Are you going to get secondary data? Are you going to do experiments? Are you going to observe? You're going to have to, and this is all in the different books. When you get to this step, you'll be able to go over to actual examples and look at it, because we don't expect you to know all these, but that's why you're here, is to learn these methodologies. So you're going to, when you have your idea, your question, and things like that, you're going to also answer what type of methodology are you going to use. Analysis specifies how the observation will be analyzed. Once you collect the data and you satisfy that portion, then they let you take that data and compute it. They're going to let you be able to categorize and code that data to try to draw a complete picture as much as possible of what your question is about. References. List of materials consulted and cited in the proposal. This right here is very important. You have to cite your work. I don't care where you get it, but you're going to use APA form and style to have your list of references. When we get to the point that we do it in our class, I'll tell you how many references I want. But you need to cite those suckers, because if you reference them and don't cite them, we think you're just putting in fluff. Okay? And so we'll get to more of that later, but this is going to provide the backing of your facts, your evidential facts. Schedule, a timeline for various stages of the proposal. This is kind of like a loose calendar here. Some were very adamant about it. I wasn't. I just knew that I had to keep trucking, never give up, spend $200,000 on it, whatever. But I knew I could. I was at the beck and call of my committee. So that part right there, wasn't so much a problem for me. Other schools have a little bit more stringent schedule. Budget, specify where money to support the research will be spent. If you get a grant or a scholarship or whatever it is, or people donate money, you got to specifically tell them what you spent that money on. Okay? That way they can keep everybody honest. So when you look at the overall research, research methods are procedures for obtaining information, on individuals on a certain phenomena for creating a general explanation or theory to explain a phenomenon. Okay, that's that question. Why? What's going on here? I want to know. You're gonna use testing the applicability of an existing theory or subgroup of the population. So you're going to test some sort of group or subgroup of the population. The testing the effectiveness of existing social programs or policies will help. It is critical to the scholarly knowledge or the database out there in criminology and criminal justice that we continue this, where we hone in on some of these topics that are plaguing the system. Somewhat unique to the field of criminal justice, is the research method. However, there is a heavier emphasis as a product of research. The phenomena of primary interest to criminologists include juvenile delinquency, adult criminality, and victimization at both individual and aggregate levels. The interest of criminal justice researchers appear more interesting as time goes on, and only a few of which include police practices and effectiveness, the dynamic of the criminal case process, sentencing, discrimination, inmate violence, and correctional program effectiveness are all at the front of what can be researched. So we're going to work on the different portions of our research, and then I want to walk you through that process, and that's what we'll be doing.